Walk into any serious collector's home and ask to see the watches still running exactly as they left the factory. They exist. Movements running within a few seconds per day, cases without a scratch that was not there on day one, bracelets that never stretched because someone knew how to wear them correctly. The difference between those watches and the ones sitting in a watchmaker's intake tray with seized keyless works, corroded movements, and crystals that look like they've been dragged across pavement has nothing to do with luck or brand. It comes down to 15 specific habits that the top collectors practice without exception, while everyone else treats a mechanical watch like a consumer product. Several of these habits directly contradict what watch brands tell you in the documentation that comes in the box. That's worth paying attention to. Before we get started, please subscribe to support my channel. New videos coming up every 2 days. Number 15. Wind the watch at the same time every day and never wind it while it is on the wrist. Most automatic watch owners never hand wind their watches at all, assuming the rotor handles everything. Most hand wind owners wind whenever they remember, with no consistency. Both introduce unnecessary wear into the winding mechanism over time. Top collectors who wear automatics establish a fixed winding time, typically in the morning before putting the watch on, and give the crown a controlled number of turns to supplement whatever the rotor has contributed overnight. This keeps the mainspring operating in a consistent tension range, rather than swinging between near fully wound and significantly depleted. A mainspring that cycles through its full tension range repeatedly wears differently than one kept in a stable operating window, and that difference accumulates across years of daily use. The rule to never wind the watch on the wrist addresses a separate but equally specific vulnerability. When the crown is turned while the watch is on the wrist, the winding stem operates at an angle relative to the movement. That lateral pressure transmits directly to the keyless works and the winding pinion, causing uneven wear that shows up as sloppy crown feel and eventual failure. Removing the watch before winding takes 3 seconds, and it eliminates that stress entirely. Number 14. Store watches crown up or dial up and never crown down. The crown and winding stem are the weakest structural points on any watch case. A watch stored crown down rests its weight on the crown and stem, placing constant low-level pressure on the keyless works and on the point where the stem enters the case, which is also one of the primary water-resistant seals. Watch boxes and trays that tilt watches at a slight angle solve this automatically. Watches thrown into a drawer resting in whatever position they land will be on their crowns some percentage of the time. The same logic applies to travel. A watch roll that keeps each piece cushioned and crown protected is maintenance equipment, not a luxury. Number 13. Never let a watch stop if it can be avoided. The lubricants inside a movement are formulated to remain distributed across bearing surfaces, gear teeth, and pivot points through the motion of the parts themselves. When a watch stops for extended periods, lubricants migrate and pool under gravity, leaving pivot surfaces partially dry. When the watch is started again, those surfaces run against each other until the lubricants redistribute. Done repeatedly, this creates wear at specific pivot points that a watchmaker can identify immediately during a service. And that wear is why some movements that never received a late or missed service still arrive with more damage than their age should suggest. For collections that rotate watches in and out of daily wear, a programmable watch winder set to each movement's specified direction and turns per day requirement keeps lubricants distributed and eliminates this problem entirely. The cost of a quality winder is modest relative to the service interval it extends. Number 12. Keep a detailed log of every watch and every service. The collector who hands a watchmaker a complete written history, every service date, every replacement part, every regulation adjustment, receives categorically different service than the one who walks in with an unknown watch and a shrug. A watchmaker presented with complete records knows which lubricants are how old, which parts are original, and where the watch was running after its last regulation. That information reduces diagnostic time and focuses the service on what actually needs attention. Every service receipt, every regulation note, every impact or drop worth noting goes into a logbook or digital file. The habit costs nothing and compounds in value every year the watch is kept. Number 11. Understand the magnetic threat and act on it specifically. Magnetism is the most underestimated threat to watch accuracy in modern daily life, and it operates silently. When a hairspring magnetizes, its coils attract each other, shortening the active length and causing the movement to run fast, sometimes by several minutes per day with no impact or obvious cause. The sources are everywhere: laptop closures, phone cases, handbag clasps, refrigerator doors, airport security trays. A simple handheld magnetometer checks for magnetism in seconds. When confirmed, any competent watchmaker demagnetizes a movement in under 2 minutes at almost no cost. Collectors who ignore this end up with watches that develop a reputation for being poor timekeepers when the issue is environmental and entirely correctable. Number 10. Protect the crown during daily wear with conscious attention. The crown protrudes from the case, connects directly to the movement, and houses one of the primary seals against moisture and debris. A significant impact against a door frame, a weight machine, or a desk edge can bend the winding stem, damage the keyless works, or compromise the gasket at the crown case interface. Top collectors develop automatic spatial awareness around the crown side of the watch. During any activity with real impact risk, the watch comes off. On screw-down crown models, confirming the crown is fully screwed before water exposure is a habit that takes seconds and protects a component whose repair, including gasket replacement and pressure testing, runs several $100s. Number 9. Avoid temperature extremes and thermal cycling. Lubricants, metal alloys, and hairspring regulation are all calibrated for the thermal environment of a human wrist under normal conditions. Extreme heat thins lubricants and migrates them off the surfaces they protect. Thermal cycling, moving rapidly between heat and cold, stresses lubricants repeatedly in ways that sustained temperature holds do not. Watches come off before saunas and hot tubs, regardless of the water resistance rating on the dial. Those ratings describe performance in cool water, not heated environments where gasket materials expand and seal geometry changes. Watches do not stay in parked cars in summer. These habits take seconds. The consequence of skipping them does not. Number 8. Never polish the case. Protect the finish that exists. Factory finishing, the specific combination of brushed and polished surfaces applied to defined facets with precise geometry, is done by hand with specialized equipment and accounts for a significant portion of production cost. When a case is polished to remove scratches, material is removed. Crisp edges become rounded. Lugs lose their geometry. Brushed surfaces intended to contrast with polished flanks become uniformly shiny. Top collectors do not polish cases. Scratches are documented as honest wear. When a watch returns from service, the instruction to the watchmaker is explicit: do not touch the case finish. For collectors who find a specific scratch visually distracting, a targeted correction by a specialist using the correct tooling for that surface type. Brushed finishing tools for brushed surfaces, rouge for polished flanks, preserves far more of the original geometry than a general case polish. That conversation with a trusted specialist costs less and produces a better result. The resale dimension matters too. A watch with original unpolished finishing, even with honest wear marks, commands more attention from serious buyers than one that has been polished to look new. Polishing is often the single most permanent and unrecoverable alteration a collector makes to a watch. Collectors who keep pieces for decades make this decision once and never revisit it. Number 7. Clean the bracelet and strap on a schedule, not when it becomes visibly dirty. Skin oils, perspiration salts, soap residue, and environmental debris accumulate between bracelet links constantly. This traps moisture against the metal, accelerating corrosion at the link pivot points and contributing to stretch beyond normal mechanical wear. In leather straps, moisture and skin oils degrade the material from the inside. Top collectors clean metal bracelets monthly using a soft brush, warm soapy water, a thorough rinse, and then they dry the bracelet completely before reattaching it. The underside of the bracelet gets specific attention because that is where debris concentrates. Leather straps are rotated between at least 2 options, so each strap dries completely between wears. Collectors whose original bracelets are still on their watches after 2 decades clean consistently. Number 6. Annual pressure testing regardless of water exposure. Water resistance ratings describe a factory test on a new watch with new gaskets. They do not describe current sealing integrity after years of thermal cycling, crown use, and gasket aging. Gaskets harden over time and lose the elasticity that creates effective seals under pressure. Top collectors have their watches pressure tested annually. The test takes minutes, costs a modest amount as a standalone service, and either confirms current integrity or identifies a gasket that needs replacement before water reaches the movement. A gasket and resealing service is a small expense. A movement service after water ingress is not. Number 5. Track the watch's rate between services. Don't wait for the service to find out it's off. Lubricant degradation in a specific part of the movement causes predictable rate changes over time. A collector who monitors the watch's rate regularly can see the trajectory and time the service appropriately, rather than over-servicing a watch with life left in its lubricants, or under-servicing one that has begun degrading. Timing applications available for any smartphone measure a movement's rate accurately using the microphone. Top collectors log their watches periodically, not obsessively, but consistently. When a stable watch begins drifting noticeably, that change triggers a service conversation, rather than a continued wait. This habit costs nothing, and it turns each watch from a black box between services into a system the collector understands in real time. Subscribe if this breakdown is useful. New videos every week covering the ownership and maintenance details that the industry does not explain clearly. Number 4. Build a relationship with one specialist, not a rotation of generics. A watchmaker who has serviced a specific watch before understands that movement in a way no other watchmaker can. They know the quirks, the previous wear patterns, and the parts that were borderline at the last service. That institutional knowledge is worth more than marginal pricing differences between shops. Top collectors find one independent watchmaker with genuine experience in the movements they own, and they bring every service there. They ask what was found, what was replaced, and what is approaching the end of its service life. A watchmaker treated as a skilled professional, rather than a service counter, responds accordingly, and performs better work than a rotating technician seeing the piece for the first time. Manufacturer service centers are appropriate for warranty work and complex electronic diagnostics. But for routine mechanical servicing on watches that are out of warranty, independent specialists typically offer more personalized attention, faster turnaround, and lower labor rates than brand service centers, which have raised prices significantly across the industry in recent years. The difference in cost across multiple services over a long ownership period is meaningful. More importantly, the difference in continuity of care is not something money alone can replicate. Number 3. Respect activity limitations without exceptions. Every watch has an activity profile. It was designed to handle. Top collectors internalize this and act on it without negotiation. A dress watch comes off before a physical activity that introduces impact risk. A diving watch handles swimming but not contact sports, where a blow to the wrist could bend the crown stem. The collectors who are still wearing their watches decades later make these decisions automatically. The ones who reason through exceptions, saying this is a tough watch and it can handle this, are the ones whose movements eventually show impact damage to the balance staff, or whose cases carry deformations that permanently affect water resistance. Removing the watch costs nothing. Number 2. Control chemical exposure with the same seriousness as impact and moisture. Perfume and cologne applied to the wrist before putting on a watch deposit alcohol-based compounds directly onto the caseback gasket and the bracelet metal. Alcohol degrades rubber gaskets and initiates corrosion, even in high-quality stainless steel. The correct practice is to apply fragrance first, let it fully dry, and then put the watch on. Sunscreen penetrates between bracelet links and works into gap seals around the caseback. Collectors apply sunscreen first, let it absorb completely, then put the watch on and clean the bracelet afterward. Cleaning products, hand sanitizers, and chlorinated pool water follow the same logic. The watch comes off, or it gets cleaned immediately afterward. The damage from skipping this habit appears slowly, which is exactly why the connection is almost never made until a watchmaker opens the case back. Number 1. Service based on what the watch is telling you, not what the calendar says. Watch brands quote service intervals as guidance for the broadest range of ownership scenarios. That guidance was not written for a collector who wears a specific watch daily, tracks its rate regularly, and can see exactly when lubricant degradation begins showing up. A movement running stably does not need service because time has passed. A movement showing increasing rate instability or developing positional differences that were not present before is communicating that lubricants are degrading. A proactive service at that point prevents the accelerated wear that begins once lubricants fail completely. A service on a movement where metal on metal wear has already started costs significantly more than one performed before the damage occurred. The collectors whose watches run without major complications across decades are not running without service. They are servicing at exactly the right time, based on what the watch is telling them, not what the documentation said when they bought it. 15 habits. None of them complicated. All of them require consistency. The watches that become heirlooms are owned by people who treat mechanical precision with the respect it requires, not occasionally, not when something feels wrong, but every single time. Subscribe if this is the level of detail you are looking for. Every week there is another layer of this: the ownership knowledge, the maintenance logic, and the collector practices that most watch content never goes near.